Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. As always, folks, if you can let me know if the audio is coming through nice and clear, nice and loud. If it's too loud, let me know as well, and we can adjust that. I am peeking into the red a little bit, so I'm gonna pull it down a little bit. There we go, just so that we don't knock anyone's ears out if they're wearing headphones. All right, folks. So welcome back to another Firestorm stream. My name is Pat, and we're going to be continuing with our A to Z of Zbrush. And at the moment, we are at the letter C. So we are working on a Chupacabra. And this is where we left off after the end of our last session. We've blocked out our main pose and our character. We've given ourselves a little bit of a diorama to work with, just to see, just to kind of make something a bit more interesting than we have in the previous lessons. So, as always, folks, give me a shout out in the chat if everyone's doing okay. And I hope everyone's enjoying their week. I know we're very, very close to we're very, very close to the festive period now. More Chupacabra. Yes, more Chupacabra indeed. So it is getting to that point where everyone's winding down. Wait a minute. Interesting. I'm curious about this. We're winding down for the end of the year. Aren't you the Bearcat guy? Where's Bearcat? I am the Bearcat guy. Bearcat is finished. I'm afraid we've completed our Bearcat, at least up until a certain point. So let me load in where we got to with our Bearcat. Just for you, Empress. So this is where we got to with our Bearcat. And as with the kind of the theme of this series is that once we get through all of our letters, we're going to, or maybe once we get halfway through the alphabet, we'll hold a poll on the Discord and we'll see which creatures or which letters people want to see more of. Okay, people want to see us work up one of the characters into a more final model. Okay, so the Bearcat I imagine that the Bearcat might be a popular one. I enjoyed sculpting this guy. They've got such great faces. But yes, we have moved on. We are now deep in the realm of the Chupacabra. And he has many names. He goes by Chucky, Charlie, or Cheeto, whichever you prefer. And what we're going to be working on today is we're going to be fleshing out some of the forms of our character body and probably working on the head a little bit more as well. Now I chose to sculpt this character in pose for most of it, but we will be using some of Zbrush's really cool tools in order to allow us to sculpt things symmetrically and then bring it back into the pose fairly easily. All right. It looks so worried and cute. Yep, that's the thing. They do have that kind of concerned look on their faces, Bearcats, most of the time. So I'm just doing a little bit of cleanup here, folks. Make sure we've got everything in the right place. All right. Now, when we left off last week, we actually made a copy of our Z-spheres so that we could delete the head, so it's a bit easier for us to see from a visualization point of view, but we don't need this. So I'm actually going to delete that. And we're going to bring back the original version. Okay. So this is the original Z-sphere mesh that we made. Chupa looks kind of worried. Well, I mean, to be fair, he should be worried. He's been caught eating a goat. So I guess that would kind of make you a little bit anxious if you were in the middle of your dinner and someone kind of barged in and was like, "What are you doing?" that's going to cause anxiety for anyone. You know, no one likes to be disturbed when they're eating. So with that in mind, we're going to hide the head here, and we're going to hide away most of the other parts of our diorama. I'm going to keep the base in for the time being. And we're now going to do a conversion so that we can start sculpting out some of these forms. However, I've just noticed, I think the actual goat, yeah, our creature's foot is on the goat. So before we actually go ahead and convert this, I just want to double check I'm happy with the pose. It doesn't mean we can't make changes later on, but you know, this is the kind of power behind a Z-sphere. And one of the benefits of it is that you can kind of make these changes quite late on. And part of me is, I think I'm going to possibly rotate this up a bit higher and then bring that down. Like so. There we go. So as always, folks, with these streams, if you have any questions or are curious about what it is we're working on, anything about the industry, Zbrush, anything at all, fire it into the chat and I will answer as best I can. Now, the hands themselves here, we're going to be redoing them. These are just going to be sitting here as stand-ins. So I'm not too worried if they don't look that great because I'll be remaking those. And with that in mind, we're going to take our Z-sphere here. I'm going to go down to adaptive skin. I'm going to turn off my Dynamesh resolution here, because if I tap A on the keyboard, it's going to jump into my adaptive skin. And you can see that where we've put all of our Z-spheres, you'll see that we get an individual polygroup. Okay, and this is really helpful. But by default, there is a 256 resolution of Dynamesh, which I just think makes it way too high to work with. So I always tend to remove it completely and work directly with polygons. And we can set the density to 1, 2, or actually as far as 8 if you really want to push it up. Although I might have just crashed my computer. There we go. That's giving us a preview of 52 million polys, which we don't want. So we're going to put that back down to, you know what? Let's do 2. And what that will give us is actually, it will give us 2 levels of subdivision that we can work with. Z-spheres look interesting to work with. Hey, Polly. Hey, Cece. Thanks very much for coming along. Z-spheres look so interesting. Z-spheres are very interesting to work with. I enjoy working with them. I find them a very creative, useful creative tool. And again, folks, if anyone wants me, if anyone does want me to kind of go through in more detail how these spheres work, I'd be more than happy to do that. We can always take little, we can take rambling digressions, if you will, to kind of cover other things. So we can always work our way back to the Chupacabra. Because even though we've done 2 sessions for the last couple of letters, it doesn't mean that we have to stick to 2 sessions. These will take as long as they take to block them out until I'm kind of happy with them, you know, and I've kind of created, I've scratched the creative itch that I wanted in creating this. I mean, part of me really wants to leave the goat like this. I mean, I suppose we could actually put some, paint on it as well. So let's say we went for a brownish goat, and then painting its tongue. There we go. Get a little bit of red on there. Apologies to anyone who likes goats. I like goats, you know. There you go. There's an odd thing to clip. I like goats. It's pre-15. Oops, typing the wrong screen. Okay, we will not ask any further. Everyone just ignore that. So let's take a slightly lighter approach to the horns. We're actually going to do a picker for the fur, and I'm going to go for like something like this. Maybe make it a bit lighter for the chest. This is a really good way to warm up, actually. It's been another busy day. I had so many things I wanted to get done today, and I was only able to get one thing done in ZBrush for part of a pitch model that I've been asked to do. So, which I can't say much about, I'm afraid, any more than that. So, there we go. Perfect. We have our goat. We should maybe give him a nose. Let's give the goat a nose. Kind of looks like a reindeer at the moment. We'll just leave it like that. That's fine. Okay, back to our Chupacabra. So, like I said, we're going to go into our adaptive skin. I've got the density set to 2, and I'm going to hit make adaptive skin. By default, what ZBrush will do is it's going to copy that into our subtool palette, and it's always going to give us that prefix of skin underscore. And if we take a little minute to look at the geometry, you'll see that there's quite a lot of stretching going on. Don't worry about this if you're using Z-spheres, okay? This is quite common, and if you really want to make sure it's completely perfect when you do an adaptive skin, you're going to spend a long time trying to do that, okay? Try to remind yourself that with Z-spheres, it is a block out tool. It's very similar to Dynamesh in that way. It's really just to kind of block out some main shapes and forms, and then you want to kind of start changing up the model a little bit, okay? So once that's done, I'm going to go back to our original. I'm going to go down to append. I'm going to bring that in. And I'll immediately rename that body. And I'm going to now start just reshaping things. So I'm going to bring the head in here, actually. Because remember, we've placed the character's head using the stager in ZBrush. So at any point, I can go down to geometry under stager, and I can switch the head between 2 different states. Okay. Now I had this idea for doing some ears on this guy. So we're going to try that. In a minute, I'm just going to bring the rest of the head. Actually, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back to the skull, and I think I'm going to reposition that a little bit based on where this head is. There we go. I want that sitting inside that area. And then if I grab the body, I'll take my move brush or your smooth brush, really doesn't matter. And I'm just going to start moving some of this into the head. So I still roughly have where I think I want the ears to go. But I've already got the head in shape. That was a button. What's the stager? Stager. Stager is a function that allows you to save two different states for an object inside of ZBrush so that you can move between the two, and you can also interpolate between them as well. What I'll do is let me just tweak this here, and then we will take a look. We'll take a look at it. And it might seem crazy that I'm sculpting or I'm approaching this without using symmetry, but it's actually a really good exercise. Is to kind of learn how to sculpt without using symmetry, so you don't have to rely on it. It's very good practice. And it adds in because it's adding in a sense, well, it's adding in asymmetry. It adds in a really nice sense of uniqueness to your model. Okay. Gives it a more real look, okay? Because everything isn't completely symmetrical. Now, for things like the spikes, again, we've added them in during the Z-spheres, but we don't need to keep them. We can always go back to our Z-sphere and pull them in again. So why don't we do that now? They are getting in the way a little bit. So I'm going to take my select lasso here. I'm just going to remove them, holding in Control and Shift, and just clicking to remove those sections. That's fine. And we'll just do a delete hidden. There we go. And then I'm just going to do a close holes. It's going to shout at me because it was just going to shout at me because I've got multiple subdivisions. So let's step back a bit. Grab the move brush again. And that's the thing as well, folks. I am just kind of designing this as I go. I've got some reference up for various creatures and some cool concept art that I found. Not specifically of a Chupacabra, that was actually quite hard to find. Just of various creatures. And I'm just kind of working my way through it. Just kind of making it up as I go. I'm going to hide the base here just so that we can get underneath and get this working. There we go. I think what we'll do here is we're going to delete the lowest subdivision because I think it's just way too low for us to actually do anything useful. So turn on, where is it? Active curve. Let me pull out area from the elbow. I have to do that on the other side as well. Okay. Okay, clean up some of the shapes here of the main spine. I'm still trying to kind of add in a little bit more volume, just kind of where the lats are going to go, because he's got quite a, very kind of top heavy character. So he's probably going to have some heavy, quite strong lat muscles. And we're going to get rid of those spines in a minute as well. I'm going to grab, let's turn on double here. I'm going to mask out this leg section here. And then I'm going to take my inflate brush, which I'm going to inflate the leg up just to create a nice tight seal there, just so we can create a bit of a crease. And if I have to pull the whole lot up, I will. One of my favorite artists that I get a lot of inspiration from is a sculptor called Simon Lee. He goes by Spider Zero online, and I would highly recommend you check him out. He does some absolutely wonderful pieces of work. Just going to bear with me, folks. I'm just going to pull in some more reference here. Right, I did say we were going to take a look at the stager for anyone who's not aware of it, so bear with me. We'll just do that just now. So this leg is looking a bit dodgy though, so we're going to have to fix that. And again, I'm just using my move brush here, using the move brush and smoothing to create the shapes I need. Not worried about it being overly lumpy. I'm just trying to get a form that I like the look of and kind of adjust and fix any anatomical issues I might have. For example, here, the shape that we've made kind of indicates that we're going to have a crease in here. So if I quickly subdivide this, I'll show you what I mean. So that means we're going to have something that looks like this in that area. So we're going to have some compression, which would mean we're going to have the kind of calf muscle here, probably pushing out like so, like that. And we're going to have to rotate either the knee in, or we're going to have to rotate our foot out to make it work. Okay. And then you can kind of go in with, so you can see how that looks broken at the moment, but that's all right. Again, it doesn't really, these are the things I don't worry about because they can all be fixed. Okay. They can all be fixed. Okay. Okay. So stager, let me just do a quick save here, folks. And we'll look at the stager very briefly. So as we've already demonstrated, with the head selected in the stager here, I can press this switch stage button and it will jump between two different points. Okay. So to do that, if we open up let's take our Bearcat model from the last time. Okay. If I take, actually, no, we're not going to use this. We'll use something a bit simpler. So here we have a standard cylinder. And what the stager will do is it's going to save all the translation. So move, scale, rotate. It's going to save all that information for us. So if we go into the geometry tab here, I'm going to make this a polymesh 3D. There we go. And I'm going to add a few details on this. Let me smooth that. I'm just going to add in few details like this. Just something. Okay. Now, in that geometry tab, if we go to the stager, say this was the shape that I wanted to sculpt, and I wanted to sculpt it symmetrically, because I can go in with my various brushes and I can add all sorts of detail, but I want to make sure that I retain this symmetry. Well, I can press the button here called Home Stage, and now Zbrush has saved this state. Okay, it's saved all the information. Next, if I wanted to then pose this, maybe if it's part of a character, so let's take, I'm going to have just append in a cube here. Wrong one, grab the cube. So say, for example, this detail I was working on was actually part of a larger object. So if I move it, turn symmetry off, move it, I'm going to scale it down, and I'm going to rotate it at an odd angle, like so. So maybe it's something like this, I don't know. There we go. With that in position, scaled down and adjusted to where it needs to be, if I go back into the stager option, I'm going to hit the button called Target Stage. And now, if I hit the switch button, Zbrush will now move move this object between those 2 points. And what's great is I can continue to go in and work with this symmetrically. Let me just pull it lower. There we go. There we go. So we've added some details to this. And now if I go back to my switch stage, switch it, zoom in, all of those details that I've added symmetrically are now on this in the new position. And then if we need to add any more, we simply switch the stage and then continue to add more detail. All right, okay. And there we go, folks. That's how the stager works inside of Zbrush. There's also a cool option here called Interpolate. So if I hit the Interpolate button, it's going to take however many stages that you've selected. So in this case, it was 8, and it's going to take it from one stage to the next and gradually interpolate the scale of that as it goes. Okay. So with that in mind, let's now jump back to working on our Chupacabra. Now turn off that's quite the long username, but hello. Nice to have you here. So what I'm now going to start doing is starting to kind of bring in a little bit more of the anatomy as best I can. So I've subdivided it a few times just to give me a bit more topology to move around. Although, if I'm being honest, folks, I do want to get rid of these spikes to make our lives easier. So let's delete the higher and then get rid of the spikes. And as I've said many times before, folks, don't worry about deleting things. Okay. This is the really early stage, so there's nothing wrong with making a few changes to get things going. I have a question. Cool, go ahead. What is your question? I will see if I can answer it. And you can see as well that by getting rid of these spikes, it just clears up the back a little bit. It's going to allow me to shape it out a bit more. I'm going to start shaping the tail. Hey, Sandman. Yes, ZBrush Touchwood is actually okay because I actually had to roll back to a previous version of ZBrush to stop the crashing when it was smoothing. So, yeah, a little bit annoying, but it has to be done. I'll test it again when they release a new version, when they release a hotfix. But it's the time of year; it's going to be busy. My recommendation is that if you are getting crashes, roll back to the previous version of ZBrush. It's still 2026, so any files that you've made in the new version should still work okay. You shouldn't run into too many problems, okay? I hope. I hope. Okay, let's just start pulling some of this in there. So one of the things that I really like description-wise from these Chupacabras is the kangaroo-esque legs. That's just always kind of tickled me. I find it quite funny. So I'm going to try it and integrate that into it. And here's the thing, folks. If I work on one leg, there's nothing stopping me from, if I'm happy with this leg on the left, I will just cut it off, mirror it, and repose it into this one here. So this is not by any means final. We can adjust, we can change, we can tweak as we need to. Okay? Just remember that. Everything is fixable. So again, we're kind of going for more, it's that kind of classic kind of dog leg look. Let's bring our snow back, make sure that we're, you know, and apparently it does have these quite skinny legs, so. But one of the things I do want to do, actually, that's the thing, I'm in two minds here, folks. I quite like how muscular this leg is, but I also like the kind of spindliness of this one. I'm in two minds. I'll have to work on something else until I can we see the ref? Unfortunately, no, because there is no reference for this one, Nitish. I am literally making this up as I go along. I'm sculpting this from up here. I've got some animal reference and some kind of concept art, but I can't show that because obviously it's you shouldn't really show off concept art that you haven't been given permission to show. Okay, same with photography. It's why when I was doing the Bearcat, I specifically went and found royalty-free photography that was safe to use on stream. Okay, so I'm afraid not. Sorry about that. What's this? How to make lips and eyes. What brush is good to make lips? I made nose, but first timer sculpting. I'm stuck on how to make eyes. I made eye socket, etc. Okay, that's a good question. That's a good question. Okay, so we can take a look at that. That's not a problem. If I can find my character head. Oh, there it is. Sorry, folks. There we go. So let me just make a bit of a tweak to these ears. And then we will take a look at doing some lips and eyes. Sculpting without ref is really cool. Well, I mean, the design, there's no reference for the design, Nitish, but I do have reference. I've got anatomy reference in front of me. I have animal reference. I've got some cool concepts that I like the look of. So I'm not completely making it up as I go along. You should always have some form of reference to kind of keep you grounded as you work through this. Okay. Question, can we use Stager between subtools, copy a location of one subtool and paste it on a different one or anything similar like that? As far as I'm aware, no, you cannot. I might be wrong with that though, Sandman. I'm actually not sure. That's worth checking out. Tell you what, two things to look for. There is a copy and paste, so let's find out. Okay, so let's say, for example, let me take the head here. Okay, I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it to, actually, let's do my switch stage here, right? So I'm going to copy that stage of the head. Let's grab this body here and hit paste. And let's see what happens when we switch. Okay, so there we go, Sandman. There's your question answered. Yes, you can. But all it's going to do is it's going to take the equivalent translation difference between this, the head here, and its other, between its home and its target stage, and I try and apply that to the body. So it's not going to work exactly in that way. Obviously, if you had multiple objects that were all going to be lined up to the head, it would probably work, okay? But yes, you can copy and paste information between different subtools. There we go. Okay, I'm liking this ear. I don't like this one. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Okay, save as. 27. So let me think. Let me think here. Let me see if I've got something that we can load in to answer Nitish's question. So, not Nitish's, sorry. Okay, so let's say, for example, we were doing eyes, okay, for a character. So I'm going to go into the head planes option here, and I'm going to bring in just, yeah, that's fine. So I'm going to open up. Yeah. No. Okay. So we have the standard head in Zbrush here. All right. So generally, if we start with eye sockets, the first thing I will always do, particularly if it's a more realistic character, is I will append myself a sphere. Now, it doesn't need, you don't need to make a completely anatomical eye for this if you don't want to. There's no need to do that. You can if you want. You can add the corneal bulge if you wish. But if you're just starting out, it's easier to just start with a sphere. And I would also recommend starting with a head like this to practice first. You can obviously practice building up forms as well, but it gives you, when you use a base mesh like this, it can help. It gets that whole first page of a sketchbook issue out of the way. All right. So I've got my eyeball in place, roughly. I'm just going to bring up a little bit of ref. Who have we got? Noctum IG or LG rating with a party of 25. Brilliant. 25 people coming in. Fantastic. Loving it. Thank you for the raid. So I'm just going to bring up some reference here for myself, because again, I want to make sure I get this right. There we go. Okay. Bear with me, folks. Yeah, that's fine. So, just going to scale down the eye. That looks about right. Sloth 33333. Cool. How are you? Would you like to introduce yourself? How are you? We are doing some 3D as well on Zbrush, so I thought it was nice over there. Brilliant. Okay, folks. Well, what we're doing at the moment, this was quite a lot has happened in the last couple of seconds, so bear with me. I'm old, so it takes me a little bit of a while to kind of keep up. All right, folks. So we are currently looking at, we're answering a question here about one way of approaching sculpting eyes and lips on a character. And we're starting off with a base head here. And we've blocked in a standard sphere just to act as our eyeball. And I'm going to go into my Z plugin here. And I'm going to go into my subtool master. I'm going to mirror this across like so. Okay. It might not be perfect, but that's fine. It doesn't need to be perfect straight away. Okay. We're just going for forms here. So I'm going to go over to the head. And the first thing I'm going to do is I've got reference of a human skull here, right? And this is where you should be starting. if you are sculpting the eye sockets and you've never done it before, you should look at the anatomy, the most basic level of anatomy. And that's going to be the actual eye socket on the skull. Okay, because if you can get these bony landmarks in first, everything else will follow with it. Okay, so I have my reference here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cleanup brush here, or my clay build-up brush, and you can use any brush you want. And I am going to start sculpting in the eye socket. Would you like to introduce yourself? Oh, do you mean me, Cece? I maybe should for the new people that are reading. That's a good point. So for anyone who has just raided and just joined us, welcome to this Firestorm stream. My name's Pat, and I am a character and creature modeler. I've been working in the industry for almost actually coming up 18 years. It'll be 18 years in February. And I specialize in particularly characters, creatures, that type of thing. But I generally will make anything that I have to. Okay. And I enjoy kind of sharing my experience and my knowledge. So we've carved out a cavity here. We're not going for any particular specific gender here or anything. We're just going for a generic skull. So I've got the socket here. And I'm now going to start building out the brows. And this is important as well. It's important to get these sections in for the skull, okay? And what I'm going to do here is, this is something I learned from Scott Eaton, is to think of the cheekbone as a pair of sunglasses. I know, I find it really helpful personally. So if I block out in a very kind of rough way here, just using my clay build-up and then flattening this down a little bit, this front part of the zygomatic. And then I'm going to pull back like so, just to really block in my cheekbone, okay? And I know this might be like, well, hang on a minute, why are we, we're trying to do the socket here, but everything's connected, so you've got to be aware of that, okay? So I'm just blocking this out, and then we're going to start bringing up the brow a bit more as well. So it's really important to get your bony landmarks in first. And that's something I'm sure you've all heard a lot when you've seen people sculpt, okay? Another follower, thank you very much. So that's not the best skull, but I am trying to just go through this fairly quickly because we've got a few things to go through, okay? Now I've got my eyeballs in. So if I turn off perspective here, generally an eyeball should sit about, 2 seconds, folks. My symmetry's broken. So get rid of this one. Blah, gone. Generally the eyeball should sit a little bit higher in the socket, round about there. So you should have a bit of a gap under here where there's a little bit more tissue. And we're just going to pull this forward. Now, you've got two options when it comes, or you've got a few options for building in this socket. And the way I personally prefer to do it, if I'm new to sculpting, if this is something you've never done before, you're not really that sure about your anatomy, is to, one, find an anatomical model for the muscles of the face. And then secondly, rather than just trying to sculpt this in, right, break it down into something that makes a bit more sense. You can simplify all of the anatomy on the face. So what I like to do, and this is how I like to teach doing eye sockets and such, is I'm going to use, you can use two things. You can either use a primitive in Zbrush and shape it, or you can use a curved brush. Now, I'll show you both methods. So if I go into the curved tube snap brush here, okay, watch what happens when I draw on the surface. ZBrush is going to snap a curve that we can manipulate onto the surface of this face. So I'm going to undo that. And then I'm going to go up to the stroke option here. And under the curve modifiers, I'm going to turn on size. And in that curve fall off, I'm going to open this up and I'm going to hit flip V. So this FV button down here. And I'm just going to adjust the curve. You don't need to do this. This is just my preference. Once I've done that, if I draw on the surface again, you can see the shape it's giving me. Now, actually, I've made a mistake. I don't want it to be thick on one end and thin on the other. I actually want it to taper at the beginning and at the end. So if I go back into my stroke menu here, we're going to reshape this curve to do something like, this. All right. And now if I draw that out, I get something that looks like that. It starts to look a little bit like an eyelid. Okay. Now, make sure you have Cont Z on, or CONTZ. This is continuous Z. Okay, this button should be turned on. And you'll find that under Picker and under, where is it? Depth. Yeah, under Depth. Okay. And all I'm going to do now, eye socket is this much size no matter what human face we're going to make. If mistakenly goes too far, carving it can damage structure. This happens with me once when I sculpt. Okay, yeah, so what we're looking at here is more the general proportions. Carving can damage the structure. If you damage it, you just have to undo and resculpt. That's the unfortunate approach. However, what I would recommend is either save a morph target or use layers if you're worried about damaging the surface. So now that I've got that, if I start drawing out on the surface, I get something that looks like this. And I can keep doing that until I'm happy with the look I get. And all I'm doing is filling in that gap, right? Now, once you've drawn out your curve, if you hold down the Alt key and just tap on the surface, that will save it in place. And you'll see that if I tap Shift F to bring up my polyframe, you'll see that we're masked out because these are now one object, but we have separate polygroups, all right? So if I mask these, invert it, I can now use my move brushes to start adding in my eyelid. And this is the kind of canthus as well. So we've got the kind of inner and outer canthus. That's what the kind of tear duct area is called on your eye, okay? And if you look at anatomy textbooks, you will see just how much is actually going on underneath the surface of our skin for these shapes. Okay. Now I'm doing this very, very quickly, folks, because we've got quite a lot to go through today. So, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to scream for longer today than like I was hoping. There we go. So, and the reason I like approaching it this way is that it follows very basic anatomical rules, but it's not overbearing. It's not showing too much. We're not creating every single kind of muscle. We're just creating the overall shape that collection of muscles around the eyes actually makes for us, while also giving us a nice clean mesh that we can work with. Okay. So you can see that the way I'm structuring this is I'm trying to keep a nice flat, sharp edge on the underside of the eyelid. Now, that's going to be a little bit larger, and my recommendation, at least in the beginning, is keep that thicker than you think it is, okay? Because it is actually thicker than you can tell when you look at your eye. It's kind of similar to when, it was a tip I was always given when I was doing life drawing, is that draw the hands a little bit bigger than you think they are, and they will look right. Just a small amount. So that's kind of where I approach it with this. So once we've got the upper lid in place, I can repeat the process. If I can find the brush, where is it gone? Ah, there we go, curved tube snap. And then I'm going to repeat it with the lower lid. It might break occasionally, so if it does, You just have to keep, there we go. Sometimes you just have to hit it in the right place in order for it to work. There we go. I'm going to do the same thing again. Alt, click to get rid of the actual curve creation line, okay? And then we will go back in and start building up the socket. Now, what I generally tend to do here is I will pull and stretch up the lid because there's more going on underneath in your lower lid than there is in the upper lid, okay? And there's so many different ways you can approach anatomy. I would recommend checking out Ryan Kingsling, Scott Eaton. You will not go wrong if you follow their approaches. And they have different approaches as well. They're far better sculptors, of course. So they're going to do things slightly differently than I do. But I tend to approach this in a way of someone who's never really approached it at all. You know, you like it's as, you know, as though someone's never even opened an anatomy textbook. Okay. And we want the lower lid to overlap, sorry, the upper lid to overlap our lower lid just a little bit. And again, this doesn't mean that this is the final shape that we're working with. All we're doing here is getting the main forms in place. And I really recommend this. Do your best not to smooth, okay? Do your best not to smooth. Stick with these low polys, these low poly meshes for as long as you can, okay? You'll thank yourself later. Okay, and now, if we mirror this again, so let's mirror the, there we go. So we can see now, if I was to just really quick, I'm going to mask out something on the, on the eye, like so. You can start to see how this face is building up very, 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 very quickly. Okay, so time where we at? Okay, we're only 5 to 5. So, all right. And then it's a case of pushing and pulling and reshaping until you're happy. What's this? Trying to make the same design that makes the basic shape of the mask CW flash, but I got stuck. Can this method make my shape I want you just made in structure? You can, yes. Yep. These are the basics. And all of these basics can be adjusted to match whatever shape it is that you're trying to create. But you have to understand the underlying mesh first before you do anything too advanced. Because if you don't do that, you will just start to get lost. Okay. So now that we've kind of got that in place, we can, as I said, we can continue to tweak and readjust, reshape the eyes, and then we can do go into our gizmo here, into the cog, choose remesh by union. Turn off symmetry before you do that though. And once that's done, you can either dynamesh this or you can use the, somebody cashed in a hydrate. I must be speaking too quick. I don't have an alert for the hydration. I've just seen it in Twitch though. Firestorm Studio. Hey, Pat. Hey, how's it going? So once we've done that remesh, you can either use Dynamesh or, in this case, we're going to use Sculptris Pro to symmetry on. Yes, it is. And we're going to start blending this together at the edges, like so. And now that you've done that, you can Z-remesh it, re-dynamesh. You can do whatever you want to start building in the rest of your character's forms. Okay. So when it comes to things like maybe you should have one so I can keep spamming. I'm actually using Dynamesh. Cool. Well, in that case, you can just re-Dynamesh as you go. So when it comes to things like the lips are tricky. Okay. And again, there's lots of ways you can approach it. So one of the first things I do is I find out where the lips are actually going to go in the character. So something like this. You want to make sure that you're not doing, for one thing, you need your underlying structure of the face, okay? So that you're not essentially drawing lips on a flat plane, because it's not going to look right. And then generally what I'll do is I'll find where I want the lip to go. And then generally, if we go by kind of standard rules, where the iris is where, in the inner side of the iris is roughly where the edge of your mouth should go, like so. And then I will start to indicate where the corner of that mouth is, like so. Then I'll take whatever sculpting brush you're familiar with, comfortable with, and then I start to sculpt in a donut shape, like so. And it looks really funny to begin with, but when you start to connect up to the rest of your character, it starts to make sense. Then what I will do is I'll just build up the lower lip, sorry. I will use 3 forms, like so. And then I'll do the same for the top. And once I'm happy with the rough forms, I'll do a little bit of cleanup, either using the pinch brush or the damn standard, maybe a mix of both, just to kind of outline where the edge should go. Jump back to the move brush and start reshaping. I use the move brush basically all the time for this type of stuff. And this is one way. I have lots of different ways that I do character lips. And there we go. Super quick, couple of minutes. It's the kind of thing that we can look at. Maybe we could do an in-between stream. Maybe take a break from the A to Z and I can show people how to do this stuff in more detail, and we can spend a bit more time on it. Grab the pinch brush. There we go. It always looks a bit weird because you've not got the rest of the face in, but all right. Okay, folks. Adding the same button. Right, folks. So we're going to jump back now to our Chupacabra. So I'm going to have to clear this off. And let's switch out of this and jump back over to our Chupacabra. Windows is trying to turn on the narrator, which I don't want. Redeem to save. Okay, so let's load up our Chupi. As I said, he's called Charlie, Chuck, Cheeto. Call him whatever you want. So we're back on our Chupacabra. And again, we're just using very similar approaches here. There we go. Going to turn off the... We'll leave the paintbrush on for our goat, but so just first curve, a straight line, then use another brush to add volume. Yes, exactly. So let's start to pull in a little bit of the chest. I need to bring in a little bit more reference here. There's this, I would like to try and do something to the character's head because I had an idea of how I wanted it to, you know, it to look. What's this as well? Yeah, you need to find Ayush, you need to find the find out the location of the mouth first. Kind of add in that line. Make sure again, like I said, that you're thinking of the mouth as a curve as opposed to a straight line. Okay, make sure you have that curve so it's curving around the skull. Similar to the way that we sculpted the eye socket, you could actually put in a cylinder to indicate where the teeth would be. And that's a really good way of making sure that you get that correct curve of the mouth. All right. So one of the things I will need to do here, I think, is we're going to have to do a little bit of a Z-remesh just to clean up the back a bit so I can start sculpting on it. So I'll duplicate the character, go into geometry, into Z-remesher, and we'll hit Z-remesh. See how that looks great. That looks absolutely fine. I have no problems with that whatsoever. Perfect. Loving it. Okay. Looks like we've got a few errors here. Thanks. Now I can do lips for my character. My pleasure. I hope that helps. Like I said, I'm happy to do another, a more in-depth one at a later stage. You know, as I said, maybe kind of do a kind of head sculpting stream at one point. So we're going to mask out. There we go. We're going to mask out the lower abdomen here. And just start pulling things down. Just to start pulling that out. There we go. And mask out the arms. So that I can start pulling the lats out, reshaping this body a bit more. And another thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to take the standard brush, or any brush really, and I'm going to find roughly where I think the spine would be. And I'm going to put that in. And remember, we're doing this asymmetrically, so we need to give ourselves guides as best we can. And it will take longer to sculpt, don't get me wrong, it will, but that's just how it goes, I'm afraid. So there we go. So we've got our spine. We'll flatten that out in a second. And that second is right now. There we go. So now I roughly know where everything is. And normally I wouldn't start. I like to kind of spend a bit more time using the move brush to position things, but sometimes you just have to, you just got to get some form in. Get some reference up here. Yeah, that'll do. So what we want here is we want to maybe, I'm going to want to connect this up like so. That ZBrush is having a fit there. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to bring that round. Maybe bring the deltoid around a bit and round it. So let's bring this forward a bit. There we go. So let's start where we think the collarbone is going to go, right about here, and up like so. And that's the thing. If it helps, sculpt it, sketch it, paint it. It doesn't matter. If it's going to help you, put it on the model. Okay, just going to where I want the scaps to go, roughly here. Because again, I want a very kind of sinewy kind of creature, as well. So. Because I want to go for that mix between the kind of the mangy dog and the reptilian kind of approach, kind of descriptions of it. That's my kind of thinking for this. So So for all the new people that Rady does, welcome. Apologies, everything kind of went really fast there. And as I'm sure Patricia and Firestorm will tell you, I'm old and I'm not really sure what's going on. And if she's listening, I apologize. I'm having a bit of a joke with her because we had a bit of a laugh on her stream one day about that. So yeah, it's all in jest, folks. So don't worry. No. So yeah, no. Welcome to everyone who has rated us. It's really nice to have you here. The series that we're going through here, just to give you a little bit, why put me on the spotlight? It's okay. You have permission to put me on the spot anytime. What we're doing here is we are going through a series called the A to Z of Zbrush, and we're essentially picking a letter from the alphabet, or we're going through the alphabet, picking a creature that begins with that letter and just sculpting it with very little prep. At most, we're starting streams with one reference image, a few photographs. Are we picking on? No, we're not really. No, we're not picking on it. No, it was funny. We were talking about, on one of the streams, we were talking about how it's sometimes quite hard to see who's following you. And Patricia mentioned that I have an issue with that as well. And she was like, I'm old. And she was like, I'm not saying that, Pat's old. And then we just took it from there and it was quite funny. So I found it funny. I like to joke about things like that. So I am at the moment just going through my usual approach of just blocking in the anatomy roughly. So you can see here that where the abdominals would be, we need to kind of have them twist. And it looks as though the hips are not twisted right. We're going to have to maybe adjust that a little bit because it's a bit too extreme. So let's start bringing that forward a bit. A little bit. Let's bring it in like so. There we go. So again, the anatomy is not going to look great, but that's all right. We just want to get some forms in there first, and then that gives us something to fix and make it look better. It's like 22 years old though. Yeah, I wish. I wish. Okay. What is this? This man has been calling himself old since 2019. I have. CC tells the truth. I have been. It's a joke I make quite a lot. So the ears need some work. Again, I think I'm now not sure which ear. I think I like this ear now rather than this one. I'm just not sure. I can't decide. Let's be honest, we all age between. This is true. This is true. I think the pandemic has a lot to answer for. It took 5 years from us, folks. 5 years, more or less. So yes, as I was saying, folks, yes, the whole point of this is just to kind of create some, give us an opportunity to kind of create random creatures, depending on the letter that they begin with, and it's allowed us to kind of pick and choose some kind of random, really cool creatures like Chupacabra. I've never sculpted one before, but I've always wanted to. So, right, like I said, we are going to do the hands separately, so we're not going to worry too much about that. You can get some forearm. Get the inflate brush out and work on the forearm a bit. However, folks, what time are we at? Okay, we're at 5:10. So what I want to do is, for those again that have rated us, once again, thank you very much. But I want to remind you, if you're not already aware, that Firestorm will be streaming tomorrow, 2 p.m. Carmen will be streaming tomorrow. And on Sunday, our very own Patricia will also be streaming. So please do check them out, okay? You do not want to miss any of their streams, all right? You really want to kind of jump in and learn from them as well, okay? So it's whenever you're sculpting like in pose, it's even more important to constantly check around your model. Make sure everything is lining up as best you can. And make sure things match. It's very tricky to do. I'm not going to lie. It's a hard thing to do, but it's worth it. All right. Okay, let's do a quick save. Right. Oh, lost pressure sensitivity again. Thank you, Wacom. And I do think it's a Wacom issue, by the way. I think it's their drivers. So now you'll remember that we got rid of the spikes. Well, we're going to bring them back shortly. I just wanted to get rid of them so that I could just make my life a bit easier when it came to the kind of blocking out the anatomy. Is that working? Yeah, it should be about there. That's what we want. We want that to be about there. There we go. So as always, folks, if anyone has any queries or questions, feel free to fire them into the chat, either about what I'm doing, other features in Zbrush. You want to know anything about the industry. If you want to know why I'm streaming, it's like, why you? Get off the stream. But I do hope everyone is looking forward to the festive period. and has lots planned. Why are you streaming? Why am I streaming? It's a very good question. Why am I streaming? It's because I broke into Firestorm Studios and just, you know, I just started streaming. They haven't been able to stop me yet. They haven't been able to stop me. What's this? Why do you stream, Pat? Honestly, I stream because it's funny, actually. I got into streaming. Going to make fantastic short material. Thank you very much, folks. I very much appreciate that. These are all very kind. It's a very kind thing to say. But why do I stream? Okay, well, I started streaming because I was, it was requested, actually. During the pandemic, I was teaching remotely, and I had to leave I was teaching in Denmark, and that was when the pandemic hit and everything in Denmark closed down. And I had to kind of be ejected from the country very quickly, or I was going to get trapped there. And I was in the middle, literally in the middle of teaching a class. So I had to continue doing it remotely. And because of that, the students asked me if I would consider streaming. And honestly, it was not something I'd ever thought about doing, because I'm really not comfortable in front of a camera. This is hell. And I agreed, and I started streaming, and I discovered I really quite enjoyed it, because it's a continuation of teaching. I love teaching. I absolutely adore it. I enjoy teaching more than working on movies. And if you gave me the choice of teaching or working on a movie, I would pick teaching every time, because there's nothing better than sharing your passion with people who have that same mindset, that are just excited about creating stuff, cool stuff, creepy stuff, cute things, it's great. I love it. And I think that's why I continued to stream, because I wanted to continue teaching. And this is a great way to teach the way that I like to teach. And so far it seems to be going quite well. So yeah, that is why I teach. Sorry, that is why I stream. That's why I stream. And I like sharing. What's this? Can barely read that with my old eyes. Tough. I like that. That's a good name. But no, that's why I just find it enjoyable. I mean, when I was learning 3D, to me, it didn't matter what I was doing. It was just exciting. No matter what you were doing, it was fun to learn about something new. And I like sharing that. I'm going to shorten this. I don't think I like the elbow there. Okay. Hang on, let me try and catch up on the chat here a little bit. Somebody mentioned about, let me see here, what's this? Okay, cool. Yeah. Someone mentioned about the forms. Yep, thank you very much. Brilliant. It's because you're wonderful. Thank you. I missed that. Thank you very much. Where do I work? I don't work anywhere at the moment, is the honest answer. I do not work anywhere right now. I haven't been very lucky in that regard. I am doing some small projects for various places, for various people actually, but I'm not working at a major studio right now. It's quite difficult, because at the moment the industry is in a little bit of a depression. It's quite tough to get work. particularly if you are, it's actually a lot harder to get work if you're more experienced sometimes. Not always, but sometimes it can be quite difficult because, studios aren't necessarily looking for someone to supervise assets or for a lead or a senior. They're looking for maybe mids or juniors, that type of thing. So he works for me. That's my personal. Well, yes, I should point out that I do. I work at Firestorm as a streamer. But yeah, as my personal Scottish moral support. I like that. That's funny. Okay. So I think we've got about 40 minutes-ish left. I'm going to save again. And I think I'm going to focus on a little bit of the head. I'm going to try and play around with the head a bit. So we're going to select the head, go into geometry, down to the stager, and switch stage. Because this is something that we do want to do symmetrically. We want to make our lives a bit easier here. Okay. So now my kind of idea for this is if anyone has seen the film Blade or the TV show Blade 2 actually, or the show The Strain, I'm kind of thinking along those lines for how this goat sucker, Chupacabra, does things. So we're going to sculpt a little bit of the head. Because now we can, because I can smooth. Goat Sucker is a great band name. It is, right? And actually, that's just reminded me of a Brooklyn Nine-Nine reference. The Maggot Drawer, which is another band reference. Oh, dang. Okay, folks, this is good. I made a mistake because I wasn't paying attention. And I have screwed up my symmetry because I forgot to put symmetry on when I was sculpting. Kind of the whole point of this. So we've got two options. We can hit mirror and weld, but that's going to mess up our center line. So instead, I'm going to mask out the area I want. And I might not be able to do this. I don't know. Smart Resim doesn't always work with this. Let's see. No, it's not going to work because it needs symmetry. Okay. We'll step back instead then. There we go. All right. Oh, this is interesting. It would appear that this symmetry is broken on this. So we are going to have to do a mirror and weld. Okay. So I'm going to have, this is great, folks. You get to see me fix something. I'm sure that's going to be really exciting for you. Maybe you should get some references. I have references. Blender, Sorcerer, P6J. But I can't show them at the moment. I'm not able to show them on stream. So, but I do have references. There we go. So all I'm doing here to fix my symmetry is I'm just moving the mesh, hitting mirror and weld until I'm happy with the look of the skull or the head, because I want this really kind of bony kind of look to it, where it looks like a bit of an accordion. It kind of looks very skull-like. I want that kind of creation. So once that's done, I'm just going to smooth, turn on symmetry. I did it again. God damn. There we go. I can tell it's getting later in the week, Okay. So now that I've got that, we're going to mask out. So I'm going to create So I want, this may or may not work, folks. We're going to find out together if this is going to work. So what I want is, I want to mask out the lower mandible here. So I'm just going to do a general mask like this. Then I'm going to open up my mask pen tool, and we're going to refine this a little bit. I would love to be able to show the references, folks, but like I said, it's just not something we can do. You've got to be very, very careful. There would actually, there's an artist I'm hoping will get back to me, because there's some future ideas I have for some of the letters, and they have some really cool artwork that I would love to be able to do on stream. Absolutely love to do it. But if they don't get back to me, I can't use it. So also, for anyone who is following the Firestorm Discord, and if you're not, why not? Feel free to pop in there, and you can always throw in some requests if you've got any ideas. Can't say we'll use them, but if you've got any ideas of certain letters of the alphabet for creatures that you might want to see, go for it. Okay. So we've created a polygroup for our mask. And to do that, all you do, hit Control W. When you've got a masked object, and it will mask everything out. Now, there's going to be, because we're working at quite a low resolution here, there's a few fair bits that are a little bit dodgy looking, and they're missing. So we'll fix that just now. Come bully Pat with me until he makes a Mothman for him. Oh, I wouldn't worry about bullying me for that. I kind of definitely had that thought. I do like I like the Mothman mystery, if you call it that. So all I'm doing here now is I've switched over to a select lasso, and I'm going through and I'm hiding any parts that weren't caught in my initial mask. Okay. And you don't have to be overly precious about this kind of stuff, because remember, we are still blocking out. So that's that. So I'm going to hit Control W, invert it, hide the eyes, and do that again. So now I'm able to very quickly. It's your cultural animal, Nessie. Yes, Nessie. Nessie, she has to be done. She can't not be, right? Like you say, cultural and all that. And that's the thing. I have found that that's the artist I was talking about. He's done an absolutely amazing. He's a Finnish artist, and I've reached out to him, and I haven't had a reply back yet. So I really hope I will get one soon, because that would be really cool to work on his version of Nessie. It's very traditional looking. It's a traditional looking design, but it would still be really cool. Is the Scottish animal a unicorn? Is that a UK joke thing? No, that is not a UK joke. The unicorn is the official national animal of Scotland. And I believe the reason behind this goes back to the fact that it was considered one of the kind of mythical animals that could kill like a lion rampart or a griffin. Okay. I could be a little bit off on exactly what it is, but that I believe is something to do with it. It's something to do with it being, able to kill other animals. So, but no, it is not a joke. That is actually our national animal. The Welsh really lucked out in that, because they have a dragon. They really lucked out. And I stand to this that the Union Jack should just have a dragon right in the middle of it. That white lightning booze. Yeah, it could have something to do with that as well. Let's not lie. So what we're going to do here is I am going to separate all these objects. So we're going to go into our subtool menu here. We're going to go down to split, and we're going to do a group split. So we click that. ZBrush is going to shout at you. It's going to tell you that this is undoable. That's fine. Hey, Panoso Cereal. Thank you very much for the follow. Much appreciated. That's quite a few followers we've had tonight. I don't know how many exactly, but we've had a few. So now I have 3 parts. So I'm going to call this cranium. And we'll call this jaw right, jaw R, and no, wait. Definitely late in the day because I cannot figure out my left from my right. There we go. Jaw L and jaw right. There we go. Okay, and we'll just call this eyes. And we'll put them all in a folder called head. And save that. Now, remember, folks, you really do have to keep track of your subtools or your models. Doesn't really matter. Whatever software you're in, housekeeping is so important. Keep track of things. Okay. So now that we've got this, I am going to start playing around with how I want this to look. So I'm going to create myself a transposed line here. I rotate that down and out. Yeah, that's going to be horrific. Okay, I love it. Right, so we're going to delete this side. Don't need it anymore. And we're going to mirror this across. So we'll mirror it. Do I want to keep it as a... No, we'll keep it as one subtool now. There we go. Nitish, it could do. I really don't know. I actually don't know what that means. I don't know what it means, but that makes a lot of sense to me. You know, logically that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, kind of liking that. But now we need to fill all this in. So we now need to kind of figure out a way to make this look decent. So I'm going to take this one here and I'm going to do close holes. And I'm going to do another mirror and weld just to basically make the underside symmetrical so that we can start working on this. So let's jump straight in and start sculpting. Just start cleaning up some of the edges and start to sculpt in where we think the mouth's going to go, like so. Half an hour, folks. Plenty of time for activities. So that's going to be the back of the throat. If we need to, we can put on Sculptris Pro here just to give us a little bit more density as needed. Turn it back off, and then we can start sculpting in. Aha, excellent. Okay. See, I'm getting excited now, folks. Now we're getting into some kind of cool bits and bobs now. This is going to be cool. Kind of cool creature design. So what I'm going to do here is I want to actually pull part of this inner kind of part of the mouth out to meet the outer parts of the jaw. And again, I don't know how this is going to work, but we're going to figure it out as we go. But I'm going to go into the snake hook brush here. So I'm going to go into brush, snake hook, and there it is. I'm going to grab that. Yep, that's fine. Ignore the warning and just pull that out. There we go. So we're going to, what I'm thinking is that this is going to look really messy for a while, folks. Snake hook tends to do that. But we can smooth it out and pull it into place. My thinking is that this kind of stretchy skin area will line up with the jaw, with the underlying jaw. So going to mask out the top here. There we go. So that I can get a nice stretchy look to this. So I don't accidentally pull down part of the mandible, because I quite like what we've got going there. That looks all right to me. That'll work. I've got some images of from the film The Thing, if anyone's I hope people have seen The Thing. I mean, there's a modern version of it. It's weird. It was like a prequel, but it was basically the whole film just remade from the Norwegians' point of view. And if you've seen the film, you'll know what I mean. So the other thing I was thinking, because this is where, kind of coming from the idea from the strain, was it having like some kind of cool tongue. So I'm going to pop that in now because it's in my head. Clay tubes. I'm not going to go for the snap one. I just want the standard one. So, ooh, what about second tongue? No. What I'll do is we're going to stroke, turn on size. I'm going to flip V and then adjust this. Hold on. That one where we don't really find out actually was the alien. Yes, spot on, actually. Spoiler alert, anyone? Yes, The Thing has been made 3 times. It was made in I want to say the 1950s. That was the original. And I think it was actually called The Thing from Outer Space. I'm not sure. Thank you. Van Can Bio. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. I apologize. So hopefully I didn't butcher that. But yes, it was made in the 1950s. Then there was one made in the 1980s, which is the famous one from John Carpenter. And then it was remade, I think, in 2011. I think it was 2011. That's the most recent version of it. All are good, by the way. All are worth watching if you are a film buff. Okay, so I'm going to change this a little bit. Just there we go. Perfect. So now that that's done, grab that, move it into place. I'm going to increase the size a bit. There we go. YouTube is weird these days. I see. Okay. My apologies. So you know what? I'm just ruining it. So we'll do something like that, because I had this idea of it having like a kind of proboscis kind of tongue to kind of do the aforementioned goat sucking. What time is it for you now? It's currently 20 to 6. It's 20 to 6. Painted Dragon. Hey, Painted Dragon. Thank you very much for coming along. Nice to see you. And I need to figure out how I want that to work. There's all these elements that I'm going to have to try and figure out. Well, first of all, we need to do something about these. So I'm going to save this in case it crashes, but I'm going to try this. I'm just going to go into geometry here. What is this? I went to see the showing of John Carpenter version, which is live broadcast after I'm going to never visit Leeds. And he said, only if you had contact details for some drug dealers. Wow. Interesting. You received 100 messages a day with 3-inch refit. Have you seen Splice? You can take inspiration. Yes, I have seen Splice. That is a very messed up movie, but very cool. That's a good option actually, Nitish. I will actually get some. I will look some reference out for that tonight because we will have to do this in a third one. We'll have to do this in a third stream, I think, maybe even more. I don't know. Depends. So what I was going to do with these jaws is I'm going to go into the dynamic subdiv, turn that on, turn off smooth, and then I'm going to add some thickness to them, like so. And this is fake thickness, okay? Crash it. How many polygons? A polygon count is only, where total points is actually under 200,000. But sometimes when you take a mesh that's been dynameshed, and it's not necessarily a clean mesh, and you try to apply certain functions in ZBrush that are maybe more suited for a nice clean topology, it can sometimes make it crash. It's the same in any software. If you kind of push it in a certain way and it doesn't like it, it can sometimes crash. So it's just something to be aware of. Right, so I'm quite happy with kind of how that looks. That's kind of awesome. Let's try putting a bit of smooth on it. Okay, so you take the smooth away, but this, what I'm going to do now is, now that I've added the thickness, I can see what it looks like. I can going to see how that might work. I'm going to hit the apply button inside the dynamic subdiv, and this will now turn it into full proper topology. Okay, so, and again, what we're going to do is we're going to delete 1/2 because we only need one so that we can experiment with it. And now I can start cleaning up the edge and trying to figure out how I want it to go together. I mean, I can cheat with this as well because we're not going to be animating it. It is just going to be like a single model. So we can be really sneaky with some of how we do certain things and just say, well, it just works like this. Okay. So what I think I will do though is I think I'm going to bring this all up ever so slightly. Okay, we don't have long, folks. We don't have long. So I'm going to start winding down. So if you have any further questions, folks, please fire them into the chat now. Failing that, I would like to remind you all again to please check out the Firestorm Discord. Come along. It's a really, really great community over there. And you'll be able to chat to people like Patricia, Carmen, Heather, you know, all the cool people. And on that note, remember that tomorrow at 2 o'clock UTC, so that's Friday, 2 o'clock UTC, we'll have Carmen streaming here on Firestorm. And on Sunday, we will have our very own Patricia. Again, 2 o'clock on Sunday here on Firestorm. So please remember to pop along, say hi, and learn some cool stuff. Okay, let's just smooth that in. What we'll do is we'll maybe bring this across. And that would be kind of muscle for that might be something along kind of up there maybe. Yeah. Okay. So let's wind down by putting this together into our scene. So we're going to do that by first, I'm going to mirror this. So I'm going to mirror, I've saved the scene, so I'm going to mirror, there it is, into one subtool. Oh, cancel. That I don't want. So I'm going to undo that. And I have to go back into the Z plugin here. So I actually mirror here. Where is it? Oh, that's in the latest version of ZBrush. They've added a new thing in ZBrush in the very latest version that allows you to ignore folders when you're mirroring with the Z plugin tool. But because I've had to roll back my ZBrush due to problems, I don't have that anymore. So I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way. So let's just reload the scene. How long we got? Okay, 15 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll drag this out of the folder. That's the eyes, not the jaw. There we go. Grab the jaw, mirror, merge into one. Now I'm going to take all these different elements and we're just going to merge these down. So we're going to take the jaws, we're going to choose merge down, hit OK, and just keep doing that. And there we go, merge down. Now, I want to stress that this is only so we can put it together with the rest of the character, and everything contained within it is still its own polygroup. So there's nothing wrong with doing this. As long as I don't redynamesh or remesh by union, I'll be able to work on each of these as I see fit. All right. So let's see, bring the snow back for the log. That's our, oh, that was actually something I did want to do. So I'll maybe try and get that not done now. Very quickly, I'm going to append. I'm going to make a new adaptive skin for our Z-spheres. So I'm going to append that in. And I'm going to delete everything other than the spines. So I'm going to get rid of these spines, invert, delete hidden. Let me just delete the lower here and then delete hidden. Close the holes so that the bottoms are capped off. And now I have some spines that I can move around as needed. So I'm just going to adjust the focal shift on my move brush. And just push those spines roughly into place. Again, there's nothing wrong with us maybe going in and redoing this with the clay tubes brush, the curved tube brush, but just for the sake of speed, there we go. There we go. It's just been a bit difficult, but whatever. What I'm going to do here is for this spine here, I'm going to go into the brush menu here. I'm going to go to Anchor Brush Classic. And I'm just going to click 2 points here. And I'm going to choose the rotate brush. So that now I should be able to, actually, need to mask it first. That would help. Then I'll do it. Then I can just rotate that down. I'll do that again. If anyone wants to see how I did it, I'm just going to mask out the area I want, invert, just tap 2 points, make sure I have rotate selected, and then I can just grab the endpoint and rotate that down, and it'll pivot it from this area here. It's a really quick way of making organic kind of spines. Okay, so let's get back to what we're actually doing. So I'm going to resave this, but I'm going to call it 32A because it's my pose file. And we're going to go into the stager again. So now that we've got the head how we want it, into the geometry tab, down to stager, and you can see that since we've been working on this head, the home stage information has disappeared. All right, so I'm going to tap home stage so that ZBrush is going to save where the head is right now. And now I can just center all those pivots. I'm going to reposition the head. I think it's safe to say he looks less anxious now, and he looks quite pissed off. We'll grab our guy's head, and we're just going to bring the head in a little bit. That almost looked a little bit rude. My apologies, folks. Okay. Oh no, we don't want that one. We need that. And we're just going to turn on all the paintbrushes. There we go. And then when we've got the head roughly in the place we want it, because I'm not done yet, I still want to just readjust the camera angle a bit, and then maybe just rotate the head. Cool. And then we'll hit target stage. And now, as I said before, we looked at this earlier on in the stream, but because I've set my home and target stage for this head, I can hit the switch stage button. So I can always go back, make any changes, maybe make the jaws open wider, and it's just going to be a lot easier for me. And then I can hit the switch stage again, and it's going to put that into place. It looks like, no, that's 100% what we're going for, Nitesh. That's exactly what we're going for. He's not happy that he's been interrupted during, you know, the sucking of a goat. So that is what we're going for. So I'm going to save that again. And that's brought us very, very nicely to the end of our stream. So once again, folks, I would like to thank you all for coming along, engaging in the chat. It's been a really, really great evening. It's been great chatting to you all. And I hope you all have learned a little bit of something about sculpting in ZBrush. Again, just to repeat myself, remember we have other streams going on this week, Friday 2 p.m. and Sunday 2 p.m. I'll be back on Monday at 4 p.m. where we'll be continuing with our Chupacabra and taking it a little bit further than it was, than we've got here. We'll be trying to focus up on maybe the look of the head, maybe the forms, all that type of thing. All right. So it's been my pleasure to stream for you all tonight. I hope you all have a wonderful evening and a wonderful festive period if I don't speak to you again until then. But yes, take care, folks, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye for now.